Okay, how's everybody today? Good. So as I said last time we met, when we I think there was some schedule changes. So 2 weeks ago when I came, there was only 4 people here. So it was kind of nice, but actually more people showed up. But as I said on that day, I am going to try to do a better job of starting on time, and then we can end a little bit earlier because I know that some of you need to take the bus home for lunch and all that. So I'll promise I'll try to do better with that. And that way we can begin on time and end a little bit earlier so you can have your lunch. Okay, so anyhow, I thought today we would start with this article. I've been, I follow the news. I'm sure many of you watch the news every day. And this is the big story right now in Taiwan. I've noticed all the TV stations are covering it around the clock. And, it's a terrible tragedy. I think many people, when they watch this or see it, they get very angry. I felt a little bit angry myself, but it's obviously the concern is for the victims of this accident. But I think it's interesting because every time something like this happens, there's a lot of public discussion about what needs to be done and how we can improve things. And so hopefully, maybe something very small that is good comes out of a tragedy like this. So this is actually an article from yesterday, not today, but I thought we would start with this. And it says 2 crash victims regain consciousness. What does consciousness mean? Yeah, you're awake. So when you're sleeping, when you go to sleep at night, you are what? Well, you're asleep, but to use this word, you're unconscious, right? Yeah, I mean, we say unconscious, obviously. You can feel things. Sometimes if you're kind of like, you're not quite awake, we might say you are semi-conscious. So you know how that feels sometimes when you're not completely asleep and you're not completely awake, you're somewhere in between. So we say semi-conscious. Now, of course, sometimes because people are sick, they may be semi-conscious, right? Maybe, I don't know, you get hit on the head real hard and you're not completely there, but you're not out either. And that's a word we use. Sometimes we say he is out completely. When we say someone is out, it means they are unconscious. Like if someone says they were knocked out, right? If someone was knocked out, it usually means they hit their head and they were knocked. We could say they were knocked unconscious, but this word out is often used to indicate unconsciousness. You can say, you could say, oh, is he asleep? And you say he's completely out. Okay, so out just means they're asleep or unconscious. Okay. Subconscious is it's kind of interesting. It uses the same word, but it's slightly different. So we say subconscious. Yeah, it's this idea that you have the kind of in the back of your mind, right? So if sometimes you meet somebody and you can't understand why, but you don't really like them. So you can say, I have this subconscious dislike for this person. Maybe there's no particular reason that you can understand why, but something in the back of your mind is making you feel a certain way. So we call that our subconscious. It's like below our thinking, our surface. So does everybody know what that means? How do you say subconscious in Chinese? Yeah, it's like another level. So anyhow, there's all these words that we get from the word conscious. Now, if you can say, there's another way of saying conscious. You can say, I am conscious of this, okay? If you say I'm conscious about that or conscious about something, it simply is another way of saying I am aware, okay? You can say, I am conscious of the fact that he is leaving Taiwan soon. It means I am aware of the fact that he is leaving Taiwan soon. So conscious can also be to be aware, to know something, okay? So let's say these words together: conscious, conscious, consciousness, consciousness. And then these words: unconscious, unconscious, semi-conscious, semi-conscious, knocked out, knocked out, subconscious, subconscious. Right. So if you do something unconsciously, sometimes that also means that you do something without thinking about it. You're not aware of it. So that when we say he did this unconsciously, it doesn't usually mean he's asleep. It usually means he did something without being aware of it. He just was not even, he didn't even know he was doing it. Okay. For some reason, he wasn't thinking about it. Okay. So this word is very useful. And we use it, it has many different, there's many, obviously very many different ways. So of course here it says 2 crash victims regain consciousness. And basically it means they wake up, right? You regain, you get back your consciousness. Now, there's another word I'll teach you, and I think you know this word. If you have, let's say you get really seriously sick or you get in an accident and you are out for a long time, what do we call that? There's a word for that. Yes. Sorry, what did you say? Well, we can say vegetarian, vegetables, but the word that I was looking for was coma. Yeah. So coma is basically when you're out for a long period of time. Sometimes people are in comas for years. They don't wake up. And so that's called a coma. So why don't we say it together? Coma. Coma. Okay. So, yes. Yeah, we could say that. You could say he's half awake or half asleep. Either way is okay. Half asleep, half awake, semi-conscious. You're just not one or the other. You're in the middle. Yes. To come to means to wake up. So, if he's knocked out, but then he came to, come, C-O-M-E, to, T-O, or came to. It means you woke up. So you could say that the 2 patients, it says here they regained consciousness, right? You could say they came to, means they woke up, okay? So yeah. Now, when we say to come to or came to, it usually refers more to someone who is in an accident. I guess you could say it for someone who's sleeping just normally, but I don't think we normally, we just say he woke up. We don't say he came to. We could, I guess, but that's not the way we normally say it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's very funny. I noticed something. In Taiwan, they love to use abbreviations that we don't use in America. If you say OCA in America, nobody knows what you're talking about. Yeah. So OCA stands for out of, what is it? It's, I remember this. It was, out of hospital cardiac arrest. Yeah. I think it's out of that. But cardiac arrest. Now, cardiac, C-A-R-D-I-A-C, refers to your heart, right? And arrest doesn't mean, like the police arrest you. It means your heart stops beating, okay? So it's basically your heart stops. So I don't know if it's out of hospital or if it means, I don't know. Maybe it is. I'm trying to remember what that OH stands for. But yeah, basically it means someone's heart stops. And then you have to do CPR, right? You know what CPR is. Now, no, we just don't say that. We say their heart stopped. Now, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure some Americans know what this means. But again, I see this term just about 2 years ago and 3 years ago in Taiwan. I started seeing OCA everywhere. And I was like, what is OCA? And so, it's just a term that suddenly people started using here. I noticed the news likes to use it a lot, the news reports. But yeah, so anyhow. But yeah, cardiac arrest means your heart stops. Maybe it's a heart attack. Maybe it's, I don't know. It could be, there's other reasons. Yeah. Why don't we say it together? Cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest. Right. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So let's look at the article. It says 2 of the 5 patients in intensive care following Monday's fatal car crash in New Taipei City's Sanxia district have regained consciousness city officials and hospital representative said yesterday. Okay, so of course you know what intensive care is, right? It's the most, yeah, we say ICU. Now Americans do know what ICU means. So ICU is intensive care. It's that part where you have to get lots of full-time care. So let's say it together. Intensive care. Intensive care. Intensive care. Okay, now of course you know this, I think, but fatal means it was another word would be what? Well, not just serious, deadly. Yes, we would say deadly because it killed people. So we could say a deadly car crash, a fatal car crash. Okay, they have regained consciousness. Okay, so let's read this. 2 of the 5 patients in intensive care following Monday's fatal car crash in New Taipei City's Sansha District have regained consciousness. Consciousness. City officials and hospital representatives said yesterday. Okay, let's go on. So it says here, New Taipei City Department of Health Director General Chen Junqiu told the city council that 9 people remain hospitalized following the crash, which left 12 injured and 3 dead. Okay, so obviously I think this word is obvious, right? If you are hospitalized, it means you're 住院, you're in the hospital. So you can say, I was hospitalized with COVID-19, or I was hospitalized after I broke my leg, or anything like that. So it means you've been put in the hospital and you're staying there. It doesn't mean you go to the hospital. It means you're staying in the hospital. You're living there. Okay, so let's say it together. Hospitalized. Hospitalized. Okay, let's go ahead and read this. New Taipei City Department of Health Director General Chen Junqiu told the city council that 9 people remain hospitalized. Hospitalized. Following the crash, which left 12 injured and 3 dead. Okay, city council, of course, is Shi Yihui, right? Okay, now that's a photo. Okay, so it says here this a 78-year-old driver surnamed Yu caused the crash by plowing into a group of pedestrians near Beida Elementary School. Local police said, let's read this, it is unclear what his health condition was at the time. Okay, so of course surname means his last name. When we say to plow, plow is a noun or a verb. What is a plow? Yeah, but if we use it, well, let's start with a noun. When we look at this as a 名词, does anyone know what a plow is? Yeah. Yeah, I'm a terrible drawer, but it kind of goes like this, and it has you push the earth or in America, we don't have this here much, I don't think, but in America, when it snows very heavily, 下雪, they have these big trucks, and they have something like that on front of the truck, and it pushes, we call that a snow plow. It pushes the snow out of the way so that cars can drive on the road. So there could be a plow, but the most common plow is for the farmer, 农夫. You plow the fields. You dig up the ground so that you can plant new plants or new vegetables or whatever. So that's the noun. But of course, plow then means to push aside or to push into, right? Just like you're plowing the snow. And so usually we use this word, we often, not always, but we often use this word for something with a vehicle, like a car or a truck. Although you could use it even for a person. You could say he was running and plowed into the group of people. You know, you could plow into somebody, okay? So why don't we say together, plow, plow, plowing, plowing. Okay. Okay, so let's read this. Sorry, I forgot to mention. What are pedestrians? Yeah, this is a word, we talk about a lot in Taiwan. Pedestrian, in America, we have, I think they say this in Taiwan too. They say, what is it, 行人 DE, right? Did they say that? Or is it DE? DU, not DE. Okay, I'll say why, because in America, we have a saying, we say pedestrians first. Pedestrians first. That's we always see the sign means number one are pedestrians. So if you're a car, you always have to give way to pedestrians. Okay, well, not 100% of the time, but usually. So I'm always surprised when I go back to America. If I'm going to cross the street, I'm waiting and a car will stop, and the driver will say, "Go," and I'm like, "Me?" But there is, I have to add, there is one thing in Taiwan or America that is illegal for pedestrians. Let's say there is no crosswalk and you just walk across the street. What do we call that? Does anyone? Yeah, jaywalking. It's a funny word, but if you're jaywalking, I don't think it's pedestrians first anymore. Sorry. So J-A-Y. I honestly don't know where that word comes from. It is, but I don't know why we call it jaywalking. So yeah, so if we say he was jaywalking or I was jaywalking, means I just walked across the road and there was no, banmashi, there was no crosswalk, there was no green light. I just walked across the road. So let's say it together, jaywalking. Jaywalking. Okay, and then this word, pedestrians. Pedestrians. So let's say this together. Pedestrians first. Pedestrians first. Right, you see that a lot in America. Okay, so let's read this. A 78-year-old driver surname Yu, caused the crash by plowing into a group of pedestrians near Beida Elementary School. Local police said, it is unclear what his health condition was at the time. Of course, it means at the time, not this time, but at the time of the accident. Okay, so it says here, the two patients who regained consciousness are junior high school students being treated at New Taipei Municipal Tucheng Hospital. Let's just read this paragraph too. It says, another patient at the hospital remained in intensive care while one more was recovering from a fracture. The hospital said, what's a fracture? Does anyone know? Yeah, basically it's a broken bone. Although fractures often are like cracks, right? And sometimes if the bone was completely like broken, it would, we wouldn't call it, I don't think we'd call it a fracture anymore. But bones actually, when they break off and there's just a crack and they're still together. I remember the only bone I've ever broken is this finger. I broke this finger playing football. Not zucho, but American football. And when I was in 8th grade, junior high school, and after I stopped, I looked at my finger and it was like this. It was, and my teacher said, "Go to the nurse." So yeah, it was fractured. So why don't we say together, fracture, fracture, fracture can be any kind of crack, okay? You could say there's a fracture in the wall, okay? Or a fracture in the glass. So any kind of crack, we can use this word. So it's not just for broken bones. Okay, so one more time, fracture. Okay, so they broke something. I don't know what it was. Now here it says they're junior high school students at the Tucheng, well, municipal. Municipal is another word for what? City. Yeah, you could say the actually, if we want to say the full word, we say as a 名词, we say municipality, L-I-T-Y. So this word becomes L and then I-T-Y, means a city. So it's another way of, you could say the municipality of Taichung, although we don't use that word too much in Taiwan. But yeah, anyhow, municipal is a common word. Why don't we say together, municipal? Municipal. 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 And then as a 名词, municipality. 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 Okay, so let's see this. Let's read this together. The two patients who regain consciousness, again, regained consciousness, are junior high school students being treated at New Taipei Municipal Tucheng Hospital. Another patient at the hospital remained in intensive care, while one more was recovering from a fracture. Fracture, the hospital said. Okay. Says at Far Eastern Memorial Hospital, 2 of the 3 admitted patients are still in intensive care, including a student and the driver. Anju Gong Hospital. Anju Gong Hospital said both of its admitted patients are now in stable condition. Okay, so admitted, when we say an admitted patient, of course, it means that they have been admitted into the hospital. It means you've been accepted or, you're in the hospital. So when you go to a hospital, if you're going to stay there, you have to be admitted to the hospital. It means, now admit, means to, chengren, right? To admit something. But if you say he was admitted into the hospital or he was admitted into the school, right? If you're a student and you want to study at a university, you have to be admitted to the university. So usually most schools have an admissions department, ADMISSIONS, admissions. So you say an admissions department, they are in charge of admitting students to the hospital. So the admitted patients are still in intensive care. Okay, and then it's Anju Gong, right? They said that both of its admitted, there's that word again, are in stable condition. Now, stable means, someone's stable, they're not unstable physically, okay? So let's read this. At the Far Eastern Memorial Hospital, Memorial Hospital, 2 of the 3 admitted patients are still in intensive care, including a student and the driver. Okay, Anju Gong Hospital said both of its admitted patients, let's say it again, admitted patients are now in stable condition. Okay. It says here, one is being treated for dizziness and the other for a shattered femur. The driver may have been fleeing from a minor collision with another car, police said yesterday. Okay, so first of all, you know what? I think we all know this word, D-I-Z-Z-Y. Dizzy means what? Yeah. Sometimes, I know when I've been sick, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you just feel dizzy. We say your head is spinning, right? You just feel dizzy. Or, if you turn around very quickly, many times, children like to play that game, you get very dizzy, right? So dizziness is the noun. Okay, so let's start with the D-I-Z-Z-Y, dizzy. Let's say together, dizzy. Dizzy. And then this word, dizziness. Dizziness. Okay, now we just talked about a fracture, right? This is not a fracture, okay? This is, first of all, what is a femur? Does anyone know? It's a bone, but which bone? I'll give you a clue. It's the biggest, actually I've learned this. It's the biggest bone in the human body. Which bone is that? Actually, no. No, actually, the largest, I don't know if it's the thickest bone. It's this bone here, your thigh bone. Yeah. So the bone that goes from here to your knee. What you're talking about, this bone here, has a different name. It's called a pelvis or pelvis bone, right? It's the bone up here, this pelvis. But femur is your we say thigh. Your upper leg is you know what your upper leg is called, right? Your upper leg is called your thigh. Does anyone know what you call this part of your leg? And not your shin. Your shin is actually the front of your leg here. But this part here, yes, it's called a calf. Sounds like a cow, right? Calf is also like a baby cow, right? But if you say, I hurt my calf, it means this bottom part below your knee, okay? So thigh is this part of your leg here. So your thigh bone, we could say thigh bone. You could simply say thigh bone, but it's your femur. That's the technical word. So why don't we say together, thigh, thigh, calf, calf, and then femur, femur. Oh, and then this word here, pelvis, pelvis. Okay, so shattered femur, when you shatter something, what does that mean? Yeah, it's in pieces, okay? It's broken into many pieces. Yeah, so that's, when I think of a shattered bone, I think this is really bad. It's not good. It takes a long time to fix something like that. I had a friend, American friend, who was biking. This is like 10 years ago. He was biking up near Fengyuan, and he didn't hit there's no car, but he was going very fast, and there was there's a hole in the road. We call that a pothole. Okay, Pothole. A pothole is, you know how sometimes when roads get old and then the pavement starts wearing away, and then you get a hole in the road, and if you hit it in your car, it can cause a lot of trouble. But in a bicycle or motorcycle, it can be a real disaster, right? Because if you're going really fast and you hit a pothole, your whole bike. So he hit a pothole, and I remember he told me his pelvis was broken, and there was like this much a gap between the two sides. So he broke I forget how many bones he broke, but when I heard that, I was just like, oh, that sounds terrible, But yeah, fortunately he did recover. So anyhow, dizziness and a shattered femur. Let's say this together, shattered. Shattered. Okay, so the driver may have been fleeing. What does fleeing mean? To flee? To run away, okay? There's many things we flee. We might flee problems, like in our life. We might flee a disaster. We might flee an accident. We might flee, we might flee someone who's attacking us. Okay, so why don't we say together, flee. Flee. Okay, so he may have been fleeing from a minor collision. And what is a collision? Yeah, it comes from the word to collide, Collide. To collide. So if you bump into somebody, you run into somebody, you say, I collided with him, okay? Or maybe you're not careful and you collide into the wall, right? You bump into the wall. So collide, and then we have the word collision as a means. So let's say the 动词, let's say this, to collide. To collide. And then the noun, collision. Collision. Okay, now this was a minor collision, right? It wasn't like a huge collision. It was a minor collision. Okay, I'm sure you've seen the video, right? He hits the median, and then he backs up and hits two more cars, right? Well, he hits one car, and the other car hits the other car. But I just used a word that I think you know, median. Does everybody know what a median is? Yeah. So median is that part in the middle of the road. Usually, sometimes there's trees on it. Sometimes it's concrete. You know, if you go down, well, actually, Taiwan Dadao does not have a median because there's two things on the side, but the middle part is open. But if you go down other roads, there may be a median in the middle of the road. Many roads in Taichung have a median. Okay, so I don't know. Actually, technically, I don't know if that would be a median because the median, I guess we could still call it a median. Sometimes it doesn't have to be right in the middle of the road. It could be on the separating the 慢车道 from the 快车道. But I don't know. I think it was actually a median because he was making a turn. Yeah. I'm not quite sure how you describe that word. I don't know if it's the same. Meridian, I've heard them. It's not as common as this word. I have to go Google that one or look it up. I've heard of meridian, but I'm not quite sure how it's used. Yeah, so why don't we say it together? Median. Median. I'll teach you one other word. You know, when you're driving down the road, and I know especially if you drive a motorcycle, motorcycles like to drive on the outside lane, which is not usually for cars. Sometimes we call that the 慢车道, right? But there's another on the 高速公路, there's an outside lane, right? We have an interesting word for that. We call that the shoulder. So, you know, this is your shoulder, right? So your shoulder, the reason why a lot of people, I hear this word a lot, is a lot of 美国人 who have come to Taiwan recently, like they're driving on the 高速公路, and then they ask me, they say, why is everybody driving on the shoulder? And I said, well, is it rush hour? And they said, yeah, it is rush hour. And I said, yeah, during rush hour in Taiwan, you're allowed to drive on the shoulder, right? I think it's what, 7点到9点钟 or something like that during rush hour. But the Americans don't know that. So they're like, what's going on? Why is everybody driving on the shoulder? And they think it's illegal, right? But yeah, I tell them, what? They can do that too? Okay, well, I don't think they're from LA, so they don't know that. So why don't we say together, shoulder, shoulder. Okay. So anyhow, you know, this is what might have caused it. Okay. Let's read this. One is being treated for dizziness, and the other for a shattered femur. The driver may have been fleeing from a minor collision with another car. Police said yesterday. Okay. So it says here, Sansha Precinct Chief Liu Wanxiong said that based on surveillance footage, you reversed into a vehicle behind him at red lights on Guoqing Road and Xuecheng Road before speeding through a crowded pedestrian crossing near the school. Okay, so I think we've learned this word before, but when we talk about 警察, the precinct is the 分局, right? Like you have in Taichung, you have 第一分局, 第二分局, right? 第三分局, we call that the first precinct, the second precinct, the third precinct. They have different, stations. So why don't we say together, precinct. Precinct. And this word, I believe, is only used for police. It's only used for police. Okay, so he says that based on surveillance footage. Now, surveillance, we've talked about this word before. Even in here, we have surveillance cameras, right? When you surveillance means to watch, right? To watch something. So in Taiwan, it seems like almost every intersection has a surveillance camera. It was very interesting. About 6 months ago, I went to visit the to 采访 to interview the Taichung 交通局局长叶局长, and he took me and my friend to this big room where they have all these videos of the whole city where these cameras are. And he asked me, he said, which intersection do you want to look at? And I was like, okay, 崇德文心路, right? So he pushed it up, and sure enough, you could see it was live, right? A surveillance camera. You could see the cars coming and going. So it was kind of cool. But we call that surveillance camera, right? Or now footage, of course, means video footage. You know, if when you watch a video, there's a part of a video, we call that footage. Okay? So let's read that together. Surveillance. Surveillance. Footage. Footage. Okay, so he reversed into a vehicle behind him. So reverse, of course, you know, in a car you have that says R, right? And reverse means to what? Go backwards, right? So you can reverse in, you know, when we say to put the car into reverse, or sometimes we say reverse gear, G-E-A-R, right? In a car, you know, in the old cars, you have the manual gear shift. You like first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. But we also have the reverse gear, right? Which takes you backwards. Okay, so he reversed into a vehicle. He went backwards and hit a vehicle. So why don't we say together, reversed. Reversed. Okay, now we can also say the car is in reverse, or I am going in reverse, or simply you can say I am reversing. Okay, any of those ways just means I'm going backwards. Okay, so reversed into a vehicle behind him at these red lights at this intersection before speeding through a crowded pedestrian crossing. Okay, so let's read this together. Sanxia Precinct Chief. Precinct Chief Liu Wenxiong said that based on surveillance footage, one more time, surveillance footage, you reversed into a vehicle. One more time, reversed into a vehicle. Vehicle. Behind him, at red lights on Guoqing Road and Xuecheng Road, before speeding through a crowded pedestrian crossing. Okay, one more time. A crowded pedestrian crossing near the school. Okay, now of course a crossing, pedestrian crossing is sometimes actually in the old days, we don't say this too much. In Taiwan they still say banma, right? They like, but and so some people do say zebra crossing. Okay, so because, you know, it has those stripes. So you know what a zebra, zebra crossing. But most people just say a pedestrian crossing, or we can say it that way. Or actually, I just said a word earlier. We can simply say crosswalk. Actually, I think this is the most common word in America. We just say the crosswalk, or pedestrian crosswalk. Okay. Yeah, it means, when you reverse into someone, it means you actually hit them. Yeah, so he reversed and hit the guy behind him, or woman behind him, I'm not sure. Okay, it says here, it is still unclear whether the earlier collision constitutes a hit and run, the police said, as Yu is currently in a coma and cannot be questioned. Okay, now collision, of course, means to hit, remember? But when we say, does this, the question is, does this collision constitute a hit and run? So before we talk about that, what is a hit and run? Yeah, so when a car hits another car, or there's an accident and the driver leaves, runs off, 逃跑, then we say hit and run. Okay, because you notice you hit someone and then you run. You don't stay. Okay, so hit what? Yeah, it's a crime. Yeah, so we say a hit and run accident, or we can simply say hit and run as a verb. Noun, 名词. This is a hit and run or a hit and run accident. Then it becomes a 形容词, right? So why don't we say together, hit and run? Hit and run. Okay, so when we say this constitutes, it means what is it? It means, does this accident equal, or is it considered a hit and run accident? You can say this constitutes that. It means that this equals that. This is what this is. Okay, so the police are not saying, they're not sure, or it's not sure whether what happened equals or is considered a hit and run accident. Okay, that's what they mean. Although to me it does look like a hit and run accident. I don't know if you've looked at the video. Yeah. I was going to actually share this word with you. Road rage. What is rage? Not just anger. Rage is like extreme anger. Okay? If you feel rage, it means you are just super angry at somebody. It doesn't mean, I'm a little bit unhappy, or I'm a little bit angry. No, rage means you are really, really angry. So road rage is a common term, especially in America. We talk about road rage a lot. So you know how it is when two drivers are driving and one driver does something and the other driver just goes crazy, right? They just start chasing the other driver, or they get out and they start fighting somebody. We call that road rage. Okay. So yeah, I have heard that. And when I looked at the video footage, I didn't notice it at first, but then it seems like he was, again, who knows, but maybe there was some road rage with the motorcyclist in front of him, right? Because he hit her. It looks like he chased her and then he hit her. She was killed, I think, right? Wasn't she one that was gotten killed? A 40-year-old woman? But yeah, she was. I didn't realize it was the same motorcyclist in front of him at the intersection. And then he hits the median. She goes on, and then he seems to go chase her and hits her. So yeah, we call that, of course, we don't know for sure, but we call that road rage. Okay? So let's say it together, road rage. Road rage. I will say, I always warn my Taiwanese friends who are going to Meiguo, I say, Americans really, really care about polite drivers. You need to be a polite driver. And if you're not a polite driver, sometimes you see road rage. So in Taiwan, I think people are much more relaxed about that. They're kind of like, oh, whatever, But I think in America, they really care about every little They think if you're a driver, you need to be very polite to other drivers. So for example, if you're driving and a car is next to you and they want to come into your lane, if you just try to, you keep going so they can't get in, that would be considered very impolite. You need to stop or slow down and allow them to come in. So that kind of impolite driving sometimes creates road rage. People get really angry. And so you have to be careful, because in America, people have guns in their cars, right? And it happens, right? People pull out guns and shoot other people because they're so angry. And so this can be a problem sometimes. But yeah, so who knows? I don't know if it was road rage or not, but maybe. I thought I saw something in the news that one of his acquaintances said that he's a nice guy until he gets in the car, right? And then when he gets in the car, he's like a different person, right? And I have to say, I've seen this before with other people. They're really nice people, and then they get behind the steering wheel and they go crazy, right? They're just like, yeah. There's a very interesting, very famous novel called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Do you know this story? Yeah, it's called, I think I'm spelling this right. That's not spelled right. No. I know what it is. I think I have it. Okay. Yeah, it's Jekyll. I'm not sure if it's one of, and then we say, and Mr. Hyde. It's written by a very famous British author, Robert Louis Stevenson. He wrote Treasure Island. Yeah. So he's this is from 150 years ago, okay? But often when we describe this situation, we sometimes say he's like Jekyll and Hyde. So if anyone says he is like Jekyll, J-E-K, I think this is spelled like J-E-K-Y-L, and Hyde, H-Y-D-E. What this story is about a doctor, and he's a very nice doctor. He's very respected. But then, I think it's at nighttime, he turns into this crazy other person. And he's completely violent, and he's like a wholly different person. And he has these two identities. And of course, at nighttime, nobody knows it's the same person, right? It's like a crazy person. So if we say Jekyll and Hyde, it means somebody who's one way, and then they suddenly turn into a completely different person. You could, but I mean, dual personality is actually a mental condition, right? So Jekyll and Hyde, it's more casual. We just say, oh, he's like, sometimes he seems like Jekyll and Hyde. He's like two different people. Okay. Let's go on here. So it says here, a parent surnamed Ding told reporters that students from the school witnessed a sedan getting stuck on the traffic divider, okay, and reversing twice into another vehicle. So this is another word for median. A traffic divider is basically the part, this usually it's made out of concrete, that divides the road. We call that a divider, but you could also call it a median. Okay, so let's say it together, traffic divider. Traffic divider. Okay, so these students witnessed, it means they saw, right? Now, what is a sedan? Right, but a sedan has how many doors? 4 doors, okay. If it has 2 doors, what do we call it? Coupe, yeah. So these are just car words, but C-O-U-P-E, okay, means a 2-door car. A sedan usually has 4 doors, okay? So let's say together, sedan. Sedan. Coupe. Coupe. I think the French say coupe or something like that. But anyhow, Americans say coupe. Okay, so yeah, he was the sedan. This is the guy, Mr. Yu's sedan, got stuck on the traffic divider and then reversed twice into another vehicle. Okay, so let's read this. A parent surnamed Ding told reporters that students from the school witnessed the sedan getting stuck on the traffic divider. And reversing twice into another vehicle. Okay, I think you all know, we've talked about this more than once. A vehicle is like something that moves, like a car, a motorcycle, a truck, a bus. Those are all different kinds of vehicles. Okay. The car then sped off towards Guocheng Street, heading in the direction of the school access lane. Okay, and then let's read this paragraph. It says here, following the crash, reports emerged that Yu had previously been involved in a traffic incident with a pedestrian pushing a baby stroller on the sidewalk of Guoqing Road in Sansha in March 2020. Okay, what is a baby stroller? Yeah, when you push, there's a funny word that the British use for this. You don't hear it as much in America, but we call it a pram. P-R-A-M is like a baby stroller. It's more of a British word. In Ingwo, they use this word more. But anyhow, I think in America, we say baby stroller. Although, in Taiwan, whenever I see a baby stroller, I'm always like, is it a baby or is it a dog? Yeah. I'm always wondering, yeah. And my second thought when I see the dog is I always say, the dog has 4 legs. Why can't he walk for himself? He probably needs the exercise, right? So yeah, I don't know. I do know that I've heard that in some stores like 百货公司, you have to have the dog in a stroller, or you can't just let him walk, or so I don't know, maybe that's why. Okay, so it says here reports emerge. Emerge means to come out, right? Emerged that he had been previously involved in a traffic incident. Okay, so he's had other problems before. Okay, so let's read this. Of course, the school access lane is a lane, xiang, or nong, that connects to the school. It accesses the school. It connects to the school. So we call that an access lane. Okay, so let's read this. The car then sped off toward Guochang Street, heading in the direction of the school access lane. Remember, with this word, you pronounce the C as K, K, but the second C is a S sound. So let's say it again, access. Access. Okay, then let's read on. It says, following the crash, reports emerged that you had previously been involved in a traffic incident with a pedestrian pushing a baby stroller on the sidewalk of Guoqing Road in Sansha in March 2020. Okay, you know, we've talked about the word to stroll means what? To walk, yeah. Like, yeah, it means usually more. When you stroll, usually it just means more relaxed, right? If you just say, I'm going to go stroll over to the 7-Eleven, it just means I'm going to go take like you said, easy walk. Or relax walk. I'm not going to walk really fast or anything like that. So I'm going to take a stroll in the park, okay? Just means an easy walk. Okay, so let's say together, to stroll. To stroll. Right, okay. Okay, yeah. I'll skip that one there, but let's read one or two, maybe one more paragraph, and then we'll move on to a different article. It says, police said that the 2020 incident was a case of negligence resulting in injury, but the two parties later reached a settlement, and the prosecutor in charge of the case decided not to press charges. Okay, so this other incident was a case of negligence. What does negligence mean? Yeah, if you are negligent about something, it means you are not paying attention. You're not doing what you should do. Now, you could say he was negligent with a T. He was negligent. Negligence, of course, is a 名词. But if you say I am negligent or he was negligent with a T, that becomes a 形容词. A negligent person means someone that is not paying attention or they're not doing what they should do. Okay? Like, for example, if you forget to pay your 利息 at the bank, right? You are negligent in your payments. Okay? It means you're not doing what you should do, which is to pay your interest on your bank loan or whatever. Okay? So negligent means, yeah. Or you could say he is a negligent father. Okay? If you are, of course, parents have responsibilities to watch their children, right? To care for their children. But if a parent is not caring for their child or they're not doing a good job, we could say they are a negligent parent. Okay? So anyone who's not, paying attention or not. Yes? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can see the word is similar, right? If you are neglectful or you neglect somebody, N-E-G-L-E-C-T, G-L-E-C-T. Neglect basically means I am not paying attention. I'm not caring for somebody. So what do we neglect? We may neglect other people. We may neglect our own health. We may neglect our responsibilities. So anything that you're supposed to be caring for, that you're not caring for, you have neglected it. You can say, I neglected to, even if you forget, 忘记了, right? If you say, oh, I'm so sorry, I neglected to tell you that there's no class today, right? Means I forgot. I was supposed to tell you, right? But I neglected to tell you that there's no class today. So that word is a very good word. And like he said, we can turn it into a 形容词 with a F-U-L, neglectful, okay? Means it's like saying negligent, okay? Okay? So they're similar words. I mean, they're kind of almost spelled the same, but let's say them together. Negligence. Negligence. And then as a 动词 with a T, to neglect. To neglect. Okay, and then, negligence. Sorry. I'm mixed up here. Sorry, I'm saying that word. But negligent is a 形容词. Okay, sorry. So with a T, negligent. Negligent. Okay, now we can say this word. To neglect. To neglect. Neglectful. Neglectful. Okay, so the police say that in 2020, when he hit the baby stroller, or the woman with the baby stroller, it was a case of negligence resulting in injury. So he was negligent, and then there was an injury. But the two parties, of course, that means him and the other person, later reached a settlement. Okay, so when you settle with somebody, it means you usually agree somebody pays somebody money, right? Yeah, you say, okay, well, I'll give you so much money and we'll settle, okay? So it says, or it can be a decision about something. You can say, well, I'll do this, or you do this, or it's an agreement, okay? The prosecutor, which is the 检察官, right? It's in charge of the case, decided not to press charges. So when you press charges, it's like to被起诉, right? It's like you're charged with something, or you're accused of somebody, but officially by the prosecutor. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? In this first, in the main case. Yeah. 5 years. Yeah. To hit her. Yeah. Murder. Yeah. So, I mean, if it was really road rage, right? If he actually was chasing her and hit her, and then he hit all those other people, then that's a much more serious. I mean, basically, it's murder, like you said, second-degree murder. Second-degree murder, I think it means you don't. It's like sudden, right? You don't think about. First-degree murder means you plan it, right? You're planning to murder somebody. Okay. So yeah, it's who knows? But yeah. So let's read this, and then we'll go on. Police said the 2020 incident was a case of negligence. Negligence. Resulting in injury. But the two parties later reached a settlement. And the prosecutor in charge, let's say it one more time, prosecutor in charge of the case decided not to press charges. Press charges. Now, I will say that not only the 检察官 can press charges, you can press charges, right? Let's say somebody does something to you, and the police may ask you, they say, would you like to press charges against that person? means would you like to accuse them of some crime, of something? And sometimes people say, no, I don't want to press charges. And some people say, yes, I do want to press charges. So it means to officially charge or accuse somebody of some kind of crime. Okay, so it's a very common word to use. Okay, well, I mean, yeah, this is a really terrible tragedy, and I think that it's yeah, I think people are very upset, of course, because it was so ridiculous that one driver can cause that much damage, and it's not. I don't know. To me, I mean, again, who knows? I don't want to. It looks like he was in control of the car, right? If you say you are unconscious or something, right? Then the car would probably go off and hit something and crash, right? Or I don't know. But he was going really, really fast on that road. So, and of course, it was a terrible tragedy. Probably the people are most upset because of the young people, the children. Yeah. Are they volunteers? Yeah. Well, yeah, we would say like, are they the ones that we call that they watch the crossroads? Yeah. So there's a special name for that. You're close. We call it a crossing guard. And they're almost always, parents or volunteers. So a crossing guard is, they have this special pole with a flag, and they put it down and everyone has to stop. So we call that a crossing because it's a crossing, right? A street crossing. So they're the crossing guard. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so it was if you watch that video, I don't know if you saw though, there's one student that when I watched the video, I thought she has a real guardian angel. Did you see the one student? She's standing there and everything goes around her and she's fine. The car goes right past her, the motorcycle goes this way, people are flying through the air, and she's just standing there in the middle of the road and nothing touches her. It's pretty shocking. If you watch that video when in slow motion, that one student was so fortunate. But when I saw that, there's an expression we use when you see that, you say, wow, that student, that person, that girl must have really had we say guardian angel. Yeah. You know what an angel is, right? 天使, right? Guardian means what? Somebody who guards you, right? We just talked about the crossing guard, right? So guardian is your parents are your official guardians, right? They're supposed to take care of you. Or if you don't have parents, maybe your relative will be your guardian, right? Somebody who watches over you. But when we say a guardian angel, we say like an angel who is watching over you. So I saw that one student, she was right in front of those other three girls, and everything just goes right just past her, but nothing touches her. And she's just standing there. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty incredible. But yeah, it was just a terrible tragedy. So yeah, hopefully we can learn from this or do something about it. Although it's difficult because, if this was just some guy that, with road rage, then, I don't know. I don't know if, what. Actually, there's another article I was looking at today. Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. Let's just quickly look at this, and then we can. I think we have time for another story, different story. But this was from today's newspaper. Now, when you just heard me say something, I said I have mixed feelings. What does that mean? Right. So when someone has, this is a very common expression, someone has mixed feelings. Okay. When you say I have mixed feelings about something, it means in my mind I'm not completely 100% sure. I might think one thing, but I might think something else that's very different. I'm not quite, It means I'm not quite sure what I think on this, how I feel about this. So this is a very common expression. You can say, I have mixed feelings about something, or about this, or about that, okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay, let's say it together. Has mixed feelings. Has mixed feelings. Okay, so let's just quickly see here what they say. It says the ministry mulls elderly driver regulations. And then it says traffic safety. It is irrational to lower the age threshold for elderly drivers to renew their driver's license because of an isolated case, a retired physician said. And that's kind of what I'm thinking too. But it says here mulls. What is to mull? We've talked about this before. To consider, to think over, right? You can say, I am mulling his idea, or I'm mulling this plan, or mulling. Sometimes we say mulling over something. It means I'm just considering, I'm thinking about it, okay? So it means to think about something. Let's say together, mull, to mull. And then another way of saying it, mulling over. Mulling over. Okay, so they're mulling, or they're considering, or they're thinking about elderly driver regulations. Of course, regulations are rules, laws. It says, it is irrational to lower the age threshold for elderly drivers to renew their driver's license. Okay, a couple words here. What is irrational? Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. It's what, we could say, actually, another way of saying this, we could say it's illogical. Okay, because what is logic? L-O-G-I-C, logic, right? Or logical. Same thing with this word, rational. Okay, if someone is rational, it means they're thinking clearly, right? But if they're irrational, they're not thinking clearly. If it's logical, it makes sense, right? Yeah. But if it's illogical, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so these words are just a little bit different, but they're very similar. They're used in very similar ways. So why don't we say this together? Rational. Rational. Irrational. Irrational. Logical. Logical. Illogical. Illogical. Right. So maybe you're having a discussion, you have an idea, and your friend's like, you're crazy. And you say, no, I'm completely rational. This idea makes sense, right? And so that means I'm not being crazy. I'm not being, this is real. Okay. So this doctor, this retired doctor, physician, that means physician is another word for doctor, right? Why don't we say together, physician? Physician. Yeah, this is a more professional sounding. Of course, doctor is fine, right? But if you can say my physician, my doctor, it's the same word. Okay. So this retired doctor says it is irrational to lower the age threshold for elderly drivers to renew their driver's license. Of course, renew their driver's license means you have to take your 驾驶执照 and retest or get a new one, right? In Taiwan, driver's license will last forever unless you're over a certain age, right? So, but there's an interesting word here, threshold. It says here, age threshold. What's threshold mean? Yeah, it's like the limit, the bar, the line, okay? So if we say, what is the age threshold, or what is the minimum age threshold for drinking alcohol in Taiwan? 18, right? After the minimum age to drink alcohol is 18 years old. Or you could say, what's the maximum threshold for drinking alcohol and driving, right? So, when you drink in Taiwan, they have a very low threshold for drinking and driving. If you drink even a little bit of 喝一点点酒, right, a little bit of alcohol, you're over the limit. So threshold is like that line, that limit, okay? You can say, some people, they say they have a high threshold for pain, means they can take a lot of pain and they can still function. Or someone might say, that you have, I mean, I shouldn't say shock. Well, I guess it is shocking. So, you know, in America, you have to be 21 years old or older to drink alcohol, which seems quite old to me, right? And so I still remember when I was at university, you know, because, you know, many university students like to drink, right? And I still remember in my American university in Feichung, in Philadelphia, I remember sometimes on a Saturday night, I would walk out of my my dormitory, and down the road, there were a whole bunch of bars, right? And I would look, and there would be all these police cars, and they would go into the bar, and they would take everybody out, and they would check their ID, right? And then all the students that are under, of course, most university students are under 21, right? So all the students are standing on the sidewalk, and they're checking their ID to see if they're we say underage drinkers, okay? So if you're an underage drinker, yeah, means you're drinking, but you're too young legally to drink alcohol. So yeah, of course, in America, some people, I don't think it really works that well anymore, but students used to buy fake IDs, you know, so they would get an ID that was fake, and it had a different age on it, you know, and then they would give it, and sometimes people would look, they'd be like, is this you? Or, you know, yeah, but now it's very interesting because, like, in some states like Bingzhou, all people, doesn't matter if it's you or me or anybody else, whenever you buy alcohol, you have to show your ID, period, everyone. And so I used to feel really happy because I'd walk in, they'd like, I want to see your ID. And I'm like, really? You think I'm under 21? You know, great. You know, here's my ID. But now they have, everybody has to show their ID. So it doesn't mean anything. So anyhow, it says here, it is irrational to lower the age threshold for elderly drivers to renew their driver's license because of an isolated case. He's saying this is really an isolated case. So why are you making this change? Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you get a fine. A fine. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not a serious crime, but and it's very interesting too because you can drink alcohol at home, right? If you're sitting at home and your parents say, "Okay, yeah, have a beer," okay, nobody's going to stop you, right? But if you're out at a restaurant or you're in a public place and you're driving, of course, well, of course, but drinking and driving is not good, period. But yeah, so it's very interesting because I've heard of situations where a student was at their house and they were drinking alcohol and somebody saw them and said, well, you know, that's illegal. But they're like, well, I'm at home, so I can do whatever I want. So anyhow, it's sometimes the law is a little bit unclear, but yeah. Not usually. There are certain places in America, very few places, where you can, we say, to drink alcohol publicly. So some states it's okay. States like Louisiana is very open. In fact, in Louisiana, it's very famous because you can be driving and have alcohol in your car in front of you, and it's legal. You know, it's kind of shocking. But many states that you cannot walk down the street drinking alcohol. You have to sit down in a restaurant or a bar or in some place where there's, you know, you can't just be outside drinking alcohol. But some places allow you to do that. It just depends. Different states have different rules. So yeah. Bicycle. Yeah. Yeah. Advice? Yeah. Why was he bicycling and drinking? Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's still like drinking and driving, right? Um, Taiwan has a stricter limit for alcohol than America does. In America, they usually say you can have one drink per hour and still drive. So if I drink one beer and then I get in my car and I drive, usually it's below the American limit. But in Taiwan, you drink one beer and drive, you're usually above the limit. So it would be illegal. But yeah, it's very interesting how that works in different places. And I know that in America, you just have to be aware of what state you're in, because it's very funny because in some states, you cannot buy alcohol in normal stores. You have to go to a special alcohol store. In Canada, it's that way too. They have a special stores that sell alcohol, but you can't buy it at the supermarket. You can't buy it at 7-Eleven. It's not available. You have to go to a special store. In Pennsylvania, Bing Joe, it used to be that way, but then they've changed it, the law. So now a supermarket will have a special section where you can buy alcohol. But in other states like Hawaii, there's alcohol everywhere. You can buy it at 7-Eleven or any place. It's everywhere. So yeah, different states, different rules. Okay, so let's go to the article here. It says, Ministry of Transportation and Communications, Chen Shikai, yesterday pledged to deliberate for 3 months whether elderly drivers should be required to install advanced driver assistance systems in their vehicles. Okay, I'm glad they're deliberating for 3 months, because I'll be honest, I feel like that's a bit of a, I believe this is a bit of an overreaction. I think I'm spelling, yeah, I think that's correct. So what is an overreaction? Right, it means you react, but it's too much, right? And I will be honest, sometimes in Taiwan, I see the government feels a lot of pressure, and then they overreact, right? They say, oh, we're going to do this and this and this. And people are like, really? Do we really need that? So I think this is a bit of overreaction. But anyhow, that's my opinion, of course. So he pledged. What's another word for pledge? He promised, okay? He promised to deliberate. And this is a good, I think, deliberate mean here. To think over, to mull, okay? So we just talked about the word M-U-L-L. This is another very similar word. To mull means to deliberate. But I think deliberate also means, it's a little bit broader, because to deliberate usually means to discuss also, to think about and discuss. So if you say they deliberated for 3 hours over this plan, it means they discussed or thought, obviously there's thinking, you think about it, but it's to discuss, to consider, to discuss, to debate, okay? Now, keep in mind, I think I've told you this before, there's the other word, if the other word is deliberate. Deliberate means what? As a 形容词, deliberate means on purpose, 故意的, right? You can say you did that deliberately, okay? Now, this word as a 动词 is pronounced differently. You pronounce this A here, and we say to deliberate, okay? And then I'll say it again, the 形容词 is deliberate. So it's in this A here that we pronounce it differently. So first of all, let's say for here, it's a 动词. Let's say it this way, to deliberate. Okay, again, to deliberate. Just pronounce the A as a long A. So we say it one more time, to deliberate. Okay, that's the 动词, it means to discuss. But if we want to use this as a 形容词, and it's a different meaning, 故意的, it's on purpose, deliberate. Okay, again, deliberate. Okay, do you all hear the difference there? Okay, yeah. Well, that's more like if you say something deliberately. No, we wouldn't say it that way. Yeah, I would say deliberating is, again, it still means to discuss something. Yeah, I think so, yeah. Okay, so they promised to deliberate for 3 months whether elderly drivers should be required to install advanced driver assistance systems in their vehicle. So this is some special system that helps you to drive. And I'm just like, that is overreaction, I think. Yeah, so why don't we say it together, overreaction. Overreaction. Okay, let's say it together. Ministry of Transportation. Sorry, I said ministry. Let's say it again. Minister of Transportation and Communications, Chen Shikai, yesterday pledged to deliberate. One more time, to deliberate for 3 months whether elderly drivers should be required to install advanced driver assistance systems. Let's say this one more time. Advanced driver assistance systems in their vehicle. Okay. Chun made the pledge at a meeting of the legislature's transportation committee, in which lawmakers were scheduled to unfreeze funding of the Ministry of Transportation and Communications, the Ministry of Digital Affairs, and the Public Construction Commission. Okay, I'm not going to read all this, but lawmakers are what? We say another word is a way of saying this is legislators, right? Legislators. Lawmakers. Lawmakers. Okay. Now, of course, you know that in the Li Fa Yuan, they've been having a real, the Li Fa Yuan has frozen a lot of money, right? So to unfreeze the money means to let it go, right? To let them spend it. Okay. So anyhow, let's just go on here. Now it says here, however, the transportation ministries plan to lower the age for elderly drivers to renew their license from 75 to 70 came under scrutiny, which was proposed after a car driven by a 78-year-old man, surnamed Yu, on Monday plowed into pedestrians, killing 3 people and injuring 12. Okay, there's at least 1 or 2 words here. It says here their plan to lower the age for elderly drivers to renew their driver's license from 75 to 70. What does this mean? Came under scrutiny. We've talked about this word before. To scrutinize means what? Yeah. To scrutinize. Oops. Okay. What does to scrutinize mean? To look at something very carefully. Okay. If you scrutinize something, you're really looking at it very, very carefully. So you could scrutinize somebody's idea. You could scrutinize, anything that's in front of you, or an idea, or plan, or something like that. So when we say to come under scrutiny, it means they are looking at this very carefully. They're considering it very carefully. The leeway are looking at this idea more carefully. They're stopping and looking at it. Does everybody understand that? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, very carefully. To peruse, yeah, I guess it's usually carefully, but to peruse is. I think usually the idea of peruse is to look at something. I think it's carefully. I'm not sure if it's just to look at something. To peruse, I know peruse means to look at something, but I'm not sure if it means you have to look at it carefully. I guess it doesn't necessarily mean carefully, because you could say to peruse something carefully. Okay, so it just simply means to look or read over something. Okay, can you please peruse my report? Can you peruse this paper? I need you to look at it. So that it just means to look at something. So yeah, I don't think it has to be carefully. Yeah. Okay, so let's say that word, to scrutinize. To scrutinize. Came under scrutiny. Came under scrutiny. So scrutiny is a 名词. To scrutinize is a 动词, right? You scrutinize something, but if you are under scrutiny, or something is under scrutiny or comes under scrutiny, it means it's being looked at very carefully. What? Oh. For the 形容词. Yeah, no, I don't know if there's an actual adjective for this word. Yeah, I don't think there's an actual adjective from that word. Yeah, but yeah. So anyhow, it came under scrutiny. It was, yeah. Okay, so let's read this. However, the Transportation Ministry's plan to lower the age for elderly drivers to renew their license from 75 to 70 came under scrutiny, which was proposed after a car driven by a 78-year-old man surname Yu on Monday plowed into pedestrians, killing 3 people and injuring 12. Right. That's a photo. Okay. So it says here, elderly drivers who have contravened traffic regulations would be required to take safe driving training and courses on hazard perception and road safety when renewing their driver's license, apart from passing physical exams and cognitive tests. Okay, so there's some words here. If you contravene a rule or law, what does that mean? To break. Yeah. So it means to violate. Remember we talked about word to violate a rule or to violate a law? This is the same idea. To contravene means to go against, to break something. So it's not, I think we usually say to violate or break, probably more common. But you could also say contravene, okay? So why don't we say together, contravene. Contravene. So those who have basically broken traffic rules are required to take, would be required to take safe driving training. So some sort of, and courses like some sort of 课,上课 on hazard perception. Now, what is a hazard? It's a means for something dangerous, right? If you want to turn that into a 形容词, it is what? Hazardous. D-O-U-S. Okay? So, you know, if this is hazardous, you should not do it. So why don't we say together, hazard. Hazard. Hazardous. Hazardous. So it says here, hazard perception. If what the word perception comes from what 动词? To perceive, okay? And what does perceive mean? Yeah, to perceive means to see something or how you know, so to be aware of something. Now you could say, I perceive that she is very angry at me, right? It means I sense or I can see that she is very angry with me. Okay, I perceive that this is going to be a problem. Okay, or I perceive that this is not right. It means how do I see it? How do I interpret that? Okay, does everybody understand that? Okay, so it's funny. I use this word a lot when I do my 跨文化训练 because if you come from 2 different cultures, you might the same thing in a very different way. Like you look at it and you say, "Oh, that's okay," and I look at it and I say, "Oh no, that's terrible," because we're from different cultures, right? So why don't we say together, to perceive, to perceive, perception, perception. Now, I will say there's one other version of this. If someone is very perceptive, T-I-V-E, if someone is very perceptive, what does that usually mean? Yeah, they're good at, they're sharp, but they're good at seeing, they're aware. They're very aware of things. Like sometimes they're other people's feelings or emotions, or they're aware of what's happening. So if someone, maybe you're having a talk with your friend and your friend says something that's very interesting that you never thought about, you might say, wow, perceptive of you, or you are really a perceptive person. It means you're able to see things that maybe other people don't see. Okay? So that's a good word, perceptive. Why don't we say it too? Perceptive. Perceptive. Okay. So here it says a course or a class on hazard perception. It means being aware or seeing hazards, especially you're driving and you see something that looks dangerous, you know what the hazards are. Okay, and of course, and road safety when renewing their license. Of course, apart from, other than, they also have to pass a physical examination and cognitive test. Now, when we say the word cognitive, what are we talking about? Your brain. Yeah. Your cognition, we say cognition is your thinking, right? Your brain. So anything that has to do with your thinking and your brain and thinking clearly is cognitive. Okay. You can say he has great cognitive powers, right? He's a great thinker, or his cognition, T-I-O-N, is really strong. He is strong or weak. We could say it that way. So yeah, when we think about thinking or the brain, this is a good word. So why don't we say together, cognitive. Cognitive. And then with a 名词, cognition. Cognition. Okay. So this is their plan, their proposal. Let's read this. Elderly drivers who have contravened traffic regulations would be required to take safe driving training and courses on hazard perception and road safety when renewing their driver's license. Apart from passing physical exams and cognitive tests. Cognitive tests. Okay. Once again, instead of saying apart from, we can simply say besides. Besides passing physical exams. Okay. So apart from. Okay. It says here, those who voluntarily return their driver's license would receive a government subsidy when they purchase a TP monthly pass. Okay, what's the word subsidy mean? Yeah, what is it? 补助, right? Or yeah. So if you use this as a 动词, we say to subsidize, D-I-Z-E. Okay. The government subsidizes many things, right? If you want to buy, I know when you buy a 电动车, right, the government will give you a subsidy. Or if you, I don't know, there's many things. Like if you have a 养小孩子, the Taiwan, I think, subsidizes some things, right? So why don't we say together, subsidy, subsidy, and then as a 动词, subsidize, subsidize, right? So you might say, why is that so cheap? And you say, oh, well, the government's subsidizing that, right? Or I got a subsidy from the government for something, to do this, okay? So it says here, if they voluntarily return their driver's license. When we say return their driver's license, what does that mean? They give it back, right? They give it up. They give up their driver's license, okay? So they voluntarily return their driver's license, would receive a government subsidy when they buy a TP pass or T-Pass. I guess it's T-Pass, monthly pass, okay? That's for transportation, right? It's like a bus MRT pass, I think. Okay, so let's read this. Those who voluntarily return their driver's license would receive a government subsidy. Subsidy. When they purchase a T-Pass, when they purchase A T-Pass monthly pass. Okay. You all know when we say voluntarily, right? It means I do it on my own will, right? If someone forces you to do something, it's not voluntary, right? But if you do something voluntary, it means you do it on your own. You agree to do it. Okay. So here it says, Chinese Nationalist Party legislator Hong Meng-kai said that it is necessary for cars to be equipped with proactive protection systems. Okay, this is a very good word. Proactive. What does proactive mean? Yeah, it's the opposite. Okay, maybe that's a good way of understanding. It's the opposite of passive. So proactive, if you are a very proactive person, it means that when you see something that might happen, you take action before it happens. Right? Let's say you think, well, that could be a problem, so I'm going to fix that now. But if you wait until it's a problem and then you act, then we say you're more passive, right? You just kind of sit back and you just kind of wait. You don't do anything. You just wait for it to happen. And then maybe you take some action. Does everybody understand that difference? Okay. So why don't we say together, proactive, proactive, passive, passive. Okay. So he says it, or he or she says it's necessary cars to be equipped with a proactive protection system. Okay, so let's read this. Chinese Nationalist Party legislator, that's again, legislator, Hong Meng-kai, said that it is necessary for cars to be equipped with proactive protection systems. Okay, so here it says, Japan mandates that elderly drivers have unintended acceleration prevention devices and collision avoidance systems installed in their vehicles, Hong said. Wow, that sounds very complicated. But first of all, what is this word? It's a very good word. What is to mandate? It means to require. Okay, you could say Japan requires. But if something, like you said, if something is mandatory, it means you have to do it. Okay? So for example, in Taiwan, military service is mandatory for most men, right? You have to 当兵, right? It's not voluntary, it's mandatory. Of course, to drive a car, it's mandatory that you have a driver's license, right? So when we say as a 动词, if we say they mandated or Japan mandates, it means they require, it's a law. So let's say together, mandates, mandates, mandatory, mandatory. So they mandate that elderly drivers have unintended acceleration prevention devices. So first of all, you know what unintended means, right? Unintentional. If you do something and it's an accident, you say, oh, it was unintended. I did not intend, 不是故意的, right? I did not intend to do this. It was unintended. Okay, so here it says unintended what? Acceleration. And what does accelerate mean? To accelerate means to do what? To go faster, right? In your car, when you step on we call it the gas pedal, we also call that an accelerator. So the gas pedal, another name for that is accelerator, because what does it do? When you step on that pedal, it makes the car accelerate. It makes the car go faster. So here, unintended acceleration prevention device, it means there's something in the car that stops it from going fast if you do not intend it to go fast. Does everybody understand that? It's a little bit complicated. Okay, and collision avoidance system. So this helps the car avoid a collision. Actually, a lot of cars, modern cars already have some kind of collision avoidance, right? It warns you if you're about to hit something, and it will actually automatically brake the car, right? It'll stop the car, okay? So anyhow, that's what he said, or he or she says. Okay, so let's read this, and then I think we'll be done. Japan mandates that elderly drivers have unintended acceleration prevention. Okay, just remember, this has a K sound, this has an S sound. Acceleration prevention devices and collision avoidance systems installed in their vehicles. Hong said. Right. Okay. Okay. So actually, I heard something yesterday that I think makes sense. They said, and it's true, they said actually the elderly drivers are not the biggest problem. Most accidents still occur with what age group? 18 to 24 years old, right? They're the ones that should have this. So, yeah. So anyhow, I don't know. I mean, I think we have to be, I think there's obviously, I think elderly drivers sometime need to renew their driver's licenses. But I think, I don't know, this feels a little bit of an overreaction. It's very expensive to install this. The U.S. doesn't have this, and they don't require drivers. I don't think they require drivers to. Let me tell you, my mother is 83 and she still drives. So I had an aunt in Hawaii. She was driving when she was 90, 91 years old. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think she had an accident either. So I don't know. I don't think most American states require drivers to do their licenses, unless you have a real problem. Then maybe they do. I'm not actually sure on the law there, but anyhow, you know, I would say let's think about this. Let's consider it, deliberate it, and then make a decision. So, okay, good. Well, thank you for your attention, and we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you.